Hello and welcome to Thursday Thoughts. Thursday Thoughts? What on earth are they, I hear you ask? Well, my friend Lucy and I meet every week over on Instagram to talk all things personal growth because she is as obsessed with it as I am. And we decided that we might as well put those conversations out as a weekly podcast. So now you can listen to us chat here on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or wherever you listen to your podcasts. And we'll be talking about topics such as spirituality, limiting beliefs, the ego, imposter syndrome, gratitude, meditation, confidence, and so much more. So if you're ready, here we go.
So here we are.
Yeah.
And we're talking about comfort zones.
We are. Yes. We are talking about comfort zones. So, do you want to start? Do you want to?
I can do. I haven't done, I've literally done, well, we never do any prep for these, do we? But I mean, I literally have done nothing. So I hope I'm going to be able to come up with something useful. So comfort zones. I mean, I would say that your greatest life is on the other side of your comfort zone. And I think it's true to say that for any of us, if we don't step outside of our comfort zones regularly, then we're kind of not growing, expanding, and moving forward with our lives. And I personally try and do things on a pretty regular basis that scare the crap out of me and get me outside of my comfort zone. And I find that when you do that, that is how you move your life forward. If you stay inside of your comfort zone 24/7, then nothing's changing. Everything is staying the same. So in order for your life to change for the better, then I think it really is essential for us to realize that we've got to get outside our comfort zones because ultimately that is what is going to make a difference.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I totally agree. I think it's so easy, isn't it? So I'm just moving you over here because I think it's so easy to just get very comfortable with the familiar, with what we know. You know, we're primed, aren't we, as human beings to be safe and to seek safety and to seek what the most easy and comfortable option. That's how we have evolved. That's how we've survived. So it's kind of in our human nature, and everything we've done as a species is to try and make our lives more comfortable so that we don't have to live in such discomfort. You know, imagine having to sleep on the floor of a cave or on the ground. You know, now we get lovely cozy beds with duvets and warmth, and you know, everything we've done is for comfort. But the problem with that is that life becomes just so predictable and almost too easy that we kind of get things can get a little bit stagnant and a little bit stale, and we don't expand and grow and push ourselves to the same extent that we can do. And so in order for us to continue with that growth and that expansion, actually, if we can kind of consciously keep pushing ourselves and keep expanding our capacity and pushing our boundaries, then actually that really helps us to we get new experiences, new opportunities, we get more creative. Because if you're doing the same thing every day, we go in that autopilot mode. We're in that sort of general, we just keep doing and repeating the same things. We don't have to think about it. Our neural pathways are so set. So we do become stagnant and stale, and that's when we get bored. And we're just so on autopilot. And I think the majority of us these days live in this kind of, as I like to call it, this like robo stress mode. We're like being like robots, but at the same time, we're all really quite stressed about everything. But when we can actually push ourselves, it's just, it's freaking scary, and it can really terrify you. But actually what you get on the other side of that makes it so worthwhile, doesn't it? It's just like the best feeling, because you realize that you are able to, you're so much more capable of doing so much more than we think we're able to do that. And I think, I've always sort of sought probably the uncomfortable route in life, and Yeah, and it's not always easy. It can sometimes be really annoying. It's like, why can't I just stick to the safer path? But actually,
Yeah.
the rewards are just not as the rewards are not as big.
So true, so true. Yeah, the rewards are not as big when you stay within the confines of your comfort zone. And I think it's, I think the thing about it is you don't have to start with anything major. You can start doing, it's like so many things. I talk about this a lot, it's just taking small steps. And, you could start by doing something that just makes you feel a little bit uncomfortable. You don't have to start by, going and doing a speech in front of 10,000 people. But I think it's good to have things in your diary, at least weekly, if not more, that give you butterflies. And I definitely do have things that make me feel a little bit sick, and even if that's just an interview for the podcast, because as you and I both know, yeah, I mean, of course it gets easier doing interviews, but still there's always that slight, "Oh," because you don't know how it's going to go, and some go better than others. So I think if you think about those things that just give you those slight butterflies in your tummy, that is definitely stepping outside of your comfort zone. And but again, we don't have to start with anything massive. You can start by taking some baby steps, and you can start by sort of practicing. And the thing is, once you do one thing outside of your comfort zone, that then gives you the confidence to do the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. And it's actually incredible how, through the passage of time, when you start doing things that scare you on a regular basis, you cannot believe, 2-3 years down the line, how far you've come and how much easier it gets to do those things that scare you. And it doesn't mean that they don't scare you. It just means that you get so much better at doing things that scare you, but just doing them anyway. It's like you don't allow them to stop you, and you do things scared. You just do things scared. And I think so many of us, myself included, we don't want to do the things that bring up those uncomfortable, scary feelings within us. But as we've both said, if we don't step outside of our comfort zones, and if we don't do those things that make us feel uncomfortable, then we are simply not going to move forward. And if, I'm sure there are, many of us probably perfectly fine in our comfort zones. And if that's the case, then great. And of course, there's a place for comfort zones. But I think if you are looking to improve your life, and if you are looking for, I think, really a more kind of fulfilling, I would dare I say it, but I think a fulfilling life is on the other side of your comfort zone. We all know what it's like to be in the kind of day-to-day 9 to 5 doing our thing. We've all done it, same thing day after day after day. Nothing really scares us. It all feels very comfortable and normal because we're used to doing it over and over and over again. But it's when we get into that pattern that nothing is changing, and therefore nothing is improving. And I really truly do believe that if we want to improve our lives, it is a non-negotiable that you have to get used to being uncomfortable. And it's that thing, I've talked about this on the podcast, it's a case of getting comfortable being uncomfortable, because the discomfort never goes. Like, I still get scared doing live calls for Thrive Solo for my membership. That is, you're on a Zoom call with however many other women. Sometimes there's 4 of us, sometimes there's 10 of us, but it's on me to kind of run the show and kind of keep things moving. And that in itself is quite a lot of pressure. And when I first started doing that, I would be really, really quite terrified. But when you make yourself do something, when you just make yourself do something the first time and it feels really, really, really terrifying, you are always going to feel, even if it doesn't go well, you're always going to feel better afterwards, because you feel like you've done something that scared you. And whether or not it goes well, you are just going to feel better about yourself for having put yourself out there and done something that scares you. Because really, that is where we find the true satisfaction in life, those true moments of like, oh my God, that is just the most amazing feeling. We don't get that unless we do things that make us feel uncomfortable, because all the other things, we're used to them, so that they're not different. And also, I think sometimes we resist going outside of our comfort zones because we think it's going to be worse than it actually is. But when you start doing just little things and you realize that actually, you know, it's, we've talked about this before on other topics, but I still ask myself to this day, what is the worst that can happen? What is the worst that can happen if I do this? I put a reel out on Instagram last week about not having sex. Now that was pretty uncomfortable, right? That was pretty uncomfortable. But actually, what's the worst that can happen? Okay, so I might get some people going, kind of sniggering. And if there's people sniggering, so what? Do you know what I mean? You have to really ask yourself, why is that so bad? That thing that I'm scared of, why am I actually scared of it? What is actually going to happen if I do that thing? And more often than not, it's that worry about what people think. We've talked about this, but I mean, so many things that are holding us back come back to that fear about what other people think. And I think when it comes to getting outside of our comfort zone, a lot of the time it comes down to that worry of judgment, that worry of humiliation, that worry of embarrassment, that worry of ridicule, all of those things. But when you just make a decision to no longer care about that, or to do it anyway, somehow those feelings, they don't disappear, but they sort of dissolve, and they become less important. Like, I've got to a point where, for example, that reel that I put out last week, I felt like such a dick, because it's, to go on Instagram and be like, yeah, I haven't had sex for 4 years. I mean, that's kind of like awkward. But actually, in the context of my podcast and the point that I was making, and I knew in my heart the point that I was making, and I was just thinking, well, the people that are going to snigger, they're not my audience. And the people that are like, oh my God, I totally hear you. And the funny thing was, I got quite a bit of engagement on that reel.
Of engagement.
Yeah, because when you do things like that, you realize that those are often the things that people really, people resonate with.
Yeah.
And fuck the people that laugh at you or whatever. But yeah, I truly believe that the kind of, if you want to live a really rich and fulfilling life that lights you up, that makes you feel good, that feels like it's sort of purposeful, you've got to get outside your comfort zone.
A very quick break to ask you to hit the follow or subscribe button if you haven't already. And if you're enjoying this episode, I'd be super grateful if you could hit those stars and rate it too. Thank you.
Yeah. It's about facing your fears and facing and embracing failure as well.
Totally.
Because we're also worried about failure and not getting it right and not doing it perfectly. And actually, if we can start to look at failure as an amazing opportunity to learn and to grow and just completely rebrand it, then actually it's a good thing. Because actually, when we step out of our comfort zone, we can fail fast, we can move forwards, and that is where that real growth is. And as you said, Lucy, some people are very, very happy living comfortably, and that is great.
Totally.
If that is you, that is great. But I think it's when things when you just get a little bit numb and a little bit
bored. If you feel a bit bored,
there's nothing actually which is getting they just really kind of getting your juices going and sparking that real joy and that emotion and that, just all the emotions. And I think that's what we're talking about here. It's like to get to really feel alive and to live, then the best way to do that is to push yourself and put yourself in different experiences and to live life. And that can be through just simply doing something really crazy, like singing at the top of your voice in the car at a traffic jam, and just stop worrying about what the person next door is going to do. Or it could be taking on a physical challenge, which you don't think you can do. Or it could just be having a really bloody difficult conversation you've been meaning to have for ages, and you've been putting it off because it's just too scary. And actually, it's like, no, just do the thing. I mean, I think doing your own business, having your own business is obviously the best. It just, there's so many things, aren't there,
Yeah.
that are just going to put you through your comfort zone. On this week, actually, I'm having a bit of a photo shoot to get some new photographs.
Are
Which,
you?
yeah, and I must admit, this is so out of my comfort
Oh
zone.
my
It's
God.
really, we're going to go outside and do some photographs, and I'm just like, for me, that is hideous, but I really want some nice photographs to put on my website to use and stuff. So I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it, and I'm going to embrace it, even though I'm going to feel like a complete and utter dick. But yeah, so it's all these little things. Just doing the podcast was a massive. We've talked about this so much, but doing the podcast has, as you said, every single one of those interviews before each one. Although I was, however prepared I am, I would still get the little butterflies in my belly, but then once you're doing it, it all comes together, and afterwards, when you get all those wonderful comments and positive feedback, it's like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, I've done this. And if you allow those scary feelings to hold you back and stop you from doing it, then you just never get any of that.
Yeah.
It's so interesting, actually. So my middle child's about to go do some traveling away, and obviously it's scary. Well, scary for him, scary for me. But one of the boys who was going with them has pulled out last minute because it all feels too much, and I just feel it's such a shame, because I just think he's never going to, it's just not, he's not putting himself in that situation to allow himself to have that growth. Okay, it feels scary now, but actually, yeah, it's such a shame. What I would say on this, though, is that for those people, for those of us who can get really anxious feelings about doing things that scare them, and yeah, anxiety is a real thing, and particularly if you get, those physical sensations in your body, we need to, on one hand, find ways of telling our nervous system that it's safe, that it's okay, so we can keep those sort of anxious feelings at bay. So that is why it is incredibly important to sort of titrate some of these practices to get out of your comfort zone, so that actually it's teaching your body that actually it is safe to push yourself. So why I'm saying this is because I'm just thinking about, breath work. So when I facilitate breath work, some of the practices that we do in breath work are really good at kind of putting your body into a stressful state. But you don't want to do that if your body is already in a really, really anxious, stressful state already. What you actually want to do is that, first of all, allow your body to know that it is safe, that it's okay. Because if you go straight into a sort of a stressful situation, it's going to explode, and
Yeah.
actually it could actually make things worse. So if you are somebody who is, who does suffer from anxiety, and you really get those physical sensations, actually, you can still do this, but you really just need, do some practice, do some breathing firstly, find some ways to tell your body that it's safe. Breathing is a great way, lots of long exhales. But there are so many somatic practices that we can do to tell our bodies that it's safe, and then you can start to take those tiny little baby steps out of your comfort zone. And actually, when we do breath work, what we're doing is we're exactly that. It's like when you blow up a balloon, and at first it's really, really tight and really hard to put that air in, and you blow it up and it's really, really stretched. But then you let all the air out, and then you blow it up again, and that time it's much more easy. It's much easier to blow up. It's much more stretchy, and that's what we're kind of trying to do. Is that each time we do a practice, or you stretch your comfort zone, you're just expanding your capacity each time, so that it feels that little bit easier.
Totally. I just want to pick up on one thing that you said about failure. Just going back a little bit, I wanted to say that failure is a win, because if you are failing, it means you are actually doing something. The people that aren't failing in life aren't trying, because nobody who is doing shit is not failing. Like, anyone who is doing shit is failing. So actually, yeah, just to pick up on what you were saying about failure, if we can start to reframe failure as actually a win, and I don't really believe in failure, because I think in order to do anything, we are all of us going to quote unquote fail, but it's just par for the course of doing anything. We're all beginners when we do something for the first time, you know. So yeah, I just think that's a really important thing to sort of bear in mind.
And also
What were
it
you saying?
helps us, it also really helps us to be, you know, when we're failing, you know, like the failure, it just has such bad, you know, we should be seeing failure. That word should be a positive thing
Totally.
rather than a negative thing. But when we're doing that, what actually it's teaching us is just to be more adaptable. So
Yeah.
okay, that pathway didn't work. So actually I'm just going to shift and adapt, and now I'm going to try this. And then maybe that one won't work. So then we've got to adapt again. So it's just teaching ourselves to become more and more adaptable every time that we fail, but just it teaches us also that there's always a different choice, there's always a different way. So it's just finding the better way that works for us.
Yeah.
And it might not be the right way, because there's numerous different ways. So it's just choosing the way which is right for that particular situation, that is right for you.
Completely.
Think.
And I think we all, I think we have quite a sort of fixed mindset about life and how it's done. We forget, because we don't think it's possible to do things a different way. You know, we're so taught to kind of, you do this and then you do this and then you do this, and you know, that's a win and that's a failure. But actually life is all about, you know, experimenting and just throwing spaghetti at the wall and seeing what sticks. And you and I both know this from our businesses. It's like we're constantly going, oh well, that didn't work, okay, well I'm going to try this and try this. You know, if we could just understand that life gets to be a little bit more fluid, and it doesn't have to be so fixed on this kind of fixed path that we're all supposed to tread. There are other ways of doing things. And you know, if you are wanting to do something, like if there's something that scares you and therefore you've got to get outside of your comfort zone, look around for evidence of people who've done it, because there'll always be somebody who's done it, you know. And it's so important to look for that evidence of people who've done the things that we want to do. And also another thing that I wanted to pick up on, Polly, that you said, is that when you go outside of your comfort zone and you do things that scare the living shit out of you, that is how you taste the real deliciousness of life. That is how you feel that amazing feeling of just like being, you know, of being alive, like you said earlier. And I think, you know, it's so easy, and God knows, look, I'm not saying I don't do this myself sometimes, but certainly back in the day when I was doing the 9 to 5 and I was just, you know, doing jobs that I didn't give a shit about, but I was just doing them because that was like what you were meant to do. And I was just kind of, you know, doing blah, 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 blah. And I never felt like I was fine. I was okay. I was living my life and I was having good times, and, you know, like life was just happening. But there was no kind of excitement and feeling. And I think actually it's when you feel that feeling of self-satisfaction, that not in a kind of a smug way, but just in a sort of, it's incredibly good for your self-confidence and your self-esteem to do things that scare the shit out of you and to get outside of your comfort zone, because you can't underestimate or sort of or understate how amazing it is to do something that does feel really uncomfortable, but to do it and get through to the other side of it. That feeling, we all need that feeling. That is what it means to be alive, you know, rather than just kind of going through, as you said earlier, on autopilot. And we're all looking for that feeling. If we really ask ourselves honestly, all of us want that feeling of like, oh my God, I just feel so great right now. We all want that feeling. Yeah. Whether we're happy in our comfort zones or not, whether we're happy just, you know, trudging along in life on autopilot, whether we're happy or not, humans want that feeling of like, oh my God, that was just amazing. And oh my God, that's just made me feel so great. And oh my God, that's made me feel so good about myself. And the thing is, it built, like I said just now, it builds on our sense of self-esteem and our sense of self-confidence. And that is so incredibly important for us and so good for us.
And the thing is, you don't need to sort of look into your, you know, every day and do something majorly massive. Actually,
No.
you can just practice these. You can set, a really good thing to do is like set yourself something, one little small tiny challenge every single day. Do something every single day,
Even
and that might
if it's just
literally,
going for a run.
yeah, or putting the shower on cold and doing 30 seconds in the shower, or or going for a run, or just doing something which feels a little bit uncomfortable. It could be, I don't know, singing around the supermarket. It can be, I mean, it's just something where you're just like, oh my gosh, this feels really uncomfortable, or this is a bit, but actually you just do it anyway.
Yeah.
And then it's just building that muscle, because it is a muscle ultimately.
Yeah.
It's just, and every time you do something, you build that capacity and expand, make that, grow. And that's why I love things like cold plunges and stuff, because you're putting yourself into such discomfort that actually, and I'm not saying you've got to do that, but I personally like that, because that discomfort, just every time you do it, it just proves to yourself, my God, I can do it. And every time you do it, you just become that little bit more resilient, and your capacity grows that little bit more. And then ultimately it means that you can hold more. You can, for us, who are supporting other people, for me, it's so important that I constantly am building and expanding that capacity, so that then I am able to, support more people and hold more. So if you keep yourself very small, then it's very difficult to do that. It's very difficult to adapt and be flexible and support other people as well. So yeah, if you're somebody who has got a job, who does support lots of other people, if you're not doing things to be able to expand yourself and your capacity by putting yourself out your comfort zone, it's going to be very difficult to scale up and build up on that. And that Gay Hendricks, his book,
The Big Leap.
yeah, which is all about that, reaching your upper limit. We all have this upper limit, and the only way really to bypass that and go above that upper limit is to do things like this, is to get out of your comfort zone, build that capacity, and then you can burst through it.
And when you
you
say upper limit, Polly, what you mean is that is kind of, just in case anyone's wondering what that means, what it essentially means is how far we think, how kind of, now I can't describe it at all, but it's our upper limit is as far as we're kind of willing to go,
and
but
also
beyond.
And ultimately it's and a lot of it is it's a subconscious thing.
Yeah.
It's like built in us. How far are we willing to go in terms of how much money we're willing to make, we think is okay to make, but it is very much subconscious beliefs. It's our limiting, basically it's where our limiting beliefs keep us. So if we can, it's just by powering through those limits, but we can do that, a lot of that, by pushing our boundaries and pushing our comfort zones. Does that make sense?
Completely. Yeah, completely. Yeah, no, I just for anyone who hasn't read the book and was wondering what that meant, I just and I was being completely inarticulate and incapable of describing what it actually is. But yes, so thanks for that.
So yeah, anything else? Any other little tips or?
Well, I just think that I just want to remind people to just remember that when you put yourself outside of your comfort zone, it feels really good. It feels good. And isn't that what we want? Isn't that what we all want? We all want to feel good. And when you do things that scare you, like you use the example of a cold plunge. If you do a cold plunge, you sit there for 3 minutes. Yes, it's hell, and it's unpleasant. It's outside. It's not comfortable. It's very much uncomfortable. But when you do it and you get out of that cold plunge, not that I've ever done a cold plunge, by the way, that I'm just using this example because you've used it. But it feels amazing when you do something that scares you, and it doesn't have to be big. It, like you say, it can just be something little, but it makes you feel good. And we all want to feel good. Ultimately, that's what we want. That's really all we want, isn't it? To feel good.
Yeah, exactly.
How profound. I want to feel good.
But that's it. But it's also, I'm going to write a post today. I haven't done any posts for ages, but on exactly this. I've just come back from a 2-week holiday, and I've got that holiday, that post-holiday feeling. I'm feeling really good. But actually, do we just want to hang out for holidays to have that feeling? Or
No.
actually, do we want to have that feeling every single day of the year? And we want to have that feeling every single day of the year. So it's about exactly that. It's about how do we cultivate those feel good feels every single day. So we don't have to just wait for like 2 weeks of the year to have a holiday, because that's not a great way to live.
Totally. But I worry that there are a hell of a lot of people out there that do spend their entire year waiting for that 2-week holiday because they want to escape their life.
Yeah.
But what we want is to create a life that we don't want to escape.
Yeah, exactly.
You know?
Exactly.
Well, we've got
All
a minute
right.
over. We've got
Okay.
9:31.
All right. Well, thanks
All right,
everyone if you've been listening. And if you want to catch more of our Monday motivations, you can come over to each of our podcasts for Thursday Thoughts, where we upload these.
And our podcasts are, yours is...
Well, at the moment it's called Metamorphosis, and yours is called Spinsterhood Reimagined.
Yes.
And Lucy's got so much amazing content, as do I. Most of mine's about menopause, perimenopause, and kind of personal growthy stuff. And all right, my love.
All right, love. I'll speak to you soon.
Take care.
Lots of love.
Bye.
Bye.